8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Grace and peace to you. This is Bobby, and today on Breaking News, I will answer the question for you, what has happened since the first blood moon of Passover 2014? Many things have gone on in the world since April. Many things. Significant things. Even if you don't find the tetrad to amount to anything, that is totally fine. Let the headline news do the talking today. The world is headed for collision with the wrath of God. As I recap events that have occurred in the last 6 months alone, I pray that you may become more aware of that than ever before. Let's do an overview of the many major headlines. A few days after the first blood moon headlines around the world broke out that leaflets were being distributed in East Ukraine ordering Jews to register and list property which was reminiscent of the Holocaust. From the Christian Science Monitor, John Kerry's dropping of apartheid bomb marks end to his Mideast peace bid. The article states Secretary of State John Kerry's use of the word apartheid to describe where Israel could be headed without the creation of a Palestinian state in the Israeli-controlled West Bank has caused a diplomatic and political firestorm. The controversy was above all an inglorious end to an Israeli-Palestinian peace initiative that Kerry had poured his heart and soul into for the past 9 months. The Times of Israel reports unseasonable rain in May, calling it the heaviest rainfall in the month of May in the past 100 years. Flash floods broke out across Israel in some places, seeing 40 times the average amount rainfall. Hundreds of tourists were reported as stranded or evacuated. According to Israel Today, for more than 2 years, a small group of women have been attempting to recreate the veil that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies in the temple in Jerusalem. The weavers themselves believe that by getting involved in such a holy activity, they are hastening the time of Israel's redemption. From CBS in Tampa, the beast is coming. That's the nickname astronomers have given to an asteroid that will nearly sideswipe Earth this Sunday, June 8th, reports Space.com. Now, although it was actually 777,000 miles at its closest approach to our planet, that's just over 3 times the distance from the Earth to the Moon. A close shave by cosmic standards. Due to the size of the asteroid impact Mark B. of Sandia National Laboratories in New Mexico stated that if hit by a city, it would definitely wipe out an entire metropolitan area. The article closes by stating, astronomers reckon they've discovered about 95% of the potential civilization enders near us. But they warn there are probably more than 1 million near-Earth asteroids at least 100 feet wide, and less than 1% of them have been discovered. Following the collapse of peace talks with John Kerry, Pope Francis hosted Israeli President Perez and Palestinian authorities Abbas at the Vatican, where they all prayed together with him for peace. The declaration of Islamic Caliphate took place this summer as the Islamic State, formerly known as ISIS, stormed the Middle East, pillaging and claiming territory to be ruled by the Caliph and Sharia law. After seizing American weaponry left behind by a retreating Iraqi army, seizing banks and oil wells in Iraq and Syria, the Islamic State has officially become the richest terror organization in the world following its bank heist of $425 million in one day. Reports vary, but Islamic State collects an estimated $1 to $3 million a day from black market oil sales. Recent headlines alone will help tell this developing story. On July 1st, ISIS crucifies 8 Christians in Syria for apostasy from Islam. July 1st, ISIS releases a map of 5-year plan to spread from Spain to China. July 2nd, ISIS puts bullseye on Mecca and Medina. On July 9th, ISIS continues to win, continues to grow. July 9th, ISIS has seized 88 pounds of uranium in northern Iraq. July 10th, Pakistani Taliban declares allegiance to ISIS. July 10th, another Syrian rebel group joins forces with ISIS terror group. July 18th, ISIS to Iraqi Christians in Mosul, convert or die. July 25th, children swear allegiance to Islamic State's caliphate. August 12th, fighters leaving Al-Qaeda affiliates to join Islamic State. September 17th, new alliance from hell, Boko Haram and ISIS, African jihadists uniting with Middle East jihadist army. September 17th, rape is a weapon of jihad. September 18th, ISIS plotting random beheadings in Australia. September 23rd, U.S. Arab allies launch first wave of strikes in Syria. And September 26th, ISIS kills nearly 300 soldiers at Iraqi army base. September 22nd, U.S. begins airstrikes against ISIS targets in Iraq, Pentagon says. September 26th, ISIS kills nearly 300 soldiers at Iraqi army base. September 29th, ISIS militants less than 2 miles from Baghdad. Fierce fighting reported near Iraqi capital. And we can easily get lost in the headlines and grow cold toward the constant barrage of media. The stories and videos are horrific. Christians are suffering extreme persecution. They are being exiled from their homes, crucified, beheaded, and families are being torn apart as their young boys and girls and women are being used as sex slaves. The question of Revelation 6:10 martyrs rings so relevant. How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Next story, Operation Protective Edge. Israel's war in Gaza was underway as discussed in episode 3 of our previous series. Daily Mail reported that an Islamic group has taken over the major airport in Libya's capital and has in its possession 11 airliners. U.S. officials fear that these may be used to carry out attacks on targets such as took place on 9/11. As a result of Russia's ongoing aggression toward Ukraine, Time magazine's front cover stated, Cold War II, the West is losing Putin's dangerous game. 3 days later, on August 7th, an Al Jazeera headline stated, U.S. and Russia renew Cold War rivalry. Russia entered Crimea in March and continues to threaten Ukraine. CNN.com reports a record-breaking skyscraper threatened by sinkholes. The article states that the construction of what would be Seoul's tallest building has hit a snag following the appearance of a number of mysterious sinkholes in and around the neighborhood where it is being built. Residents of South Korea's capital are alarmed by the increasing incidence of sinkholes, depressions measuring up to several feet in depth and diameter, which have suddenly appeared around Seoul. The first one was discovered in June, and since then several others have happened, local media have reported. So far, authorities are baffled. This is no isolated event. This strange phenomena has been happening all over the world and seems to be picking up steam. Homes and cars have been swallowed unexpectedly. A man killed in his sleep as a sinkhole opened up underneath him. All this reminds me of Romans 8:19 through 22, where Paul says, the anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, and hope that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we now know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. Following the shooting of a black man by a white police officer, riots broke out in Ferguson, Missouri, along with widespread vandalism and looting. Many innocent people were injured or suffered the destruction of property. Much of the crime took place at the hands of outsiders coming into Ferguson and exploiting the situation. This lasted for more than 2 weeks, with much emphasis placed on the militarization of the police force. The Jerusalem Post reports that Palestinian Authority President Abbas is planning to announce, quote, an unconventional solution, end quote, to Israeli-Arab conflict. While not giving too much detail on what his plan might be, he stated that, quote, it will be an unconventional solution, but I'm not going to declare war on Israel. I have diplomatic and political solutions, end of quote. The article continues by saying, quote, that he did not expect the U.S. to accept his new initiative. I don't think they will comply, but we are going to go forward and tell them this is our position, Abbas said, referring to the U.S. administration. When we went to the United Nations to seek recognition of a Palestinian state, the U.S. objected. They were also against us going to the Security Council, General Assembly, and 15 international treaties and conventions. Abbas said, although he respects that the U.S. is a superpower and rules the world, there are issues where I can't appease America despite my keenness to preserve our relationship. America helps us, but this does not mean that it has the right to hold hostage my decision. In the end, our Arab brothers will go with us, he added. Ultimately, the article goes on to state that the goal is to remove Washington's monopoly on the process and allow the United Nations to have more of a position. The PA official has stated that this unconventional solution is asking the UN Security Council to give international legitimacy to a Palestinian state with pre-1967 border and Jerusalem as its capital. They pointed out that Abbas's initiative has won the backing of the Russians, Europeans, and Egyptian president, end of quote. If this takes place, the result will be international pressure on Israel due to their occupation of Palestinian territory. The nations will surely begin to mount up against Israel. On the same day, a 6.0 earthquake struck Napa Valley, California, and was declared by President Obama a major disaster. Quote, the quake was the strongest to hit the San Francisco Bay Area since a magnitude 6.9 quake in 1989, end of quote, according to the Huffington Post. According to endoftheamericandream.com, in an article on August 21st, the number of big earthquakes during the first 3 months of 2014 was more than double the yearly average of what we have experienced since 1979, and the number of earthquakes in the central and eastern U.S. has quintupled in recent years, end of quote. On July 18th, the Wall Street Journal stated, earthquakes are occurring more frequently in parts of the U.S. where they have historically been rare. And quake hazard is rising for people not used to thinking about or preparing for it. They go on to say, according to the USGS, the frequency of earthquakes in the central and eastern U.S. has quintupled to an average of 100 a year during the 2011 through 2013 period, up from only 20 per year during the 30-year period to 2000. Walmart has taken notice of the increase in regions important to them, so much so that they are making preparations. Mark Cooper, Senior Director of Emergency Management at Walmart, said, quote, we are seeing increased earthquake activity in central U.S. That is an area we are focusing on even more, end of quote. On July 1st, CBS News reported, if you think there have been more earthquakes than usual this year, you're right. A new study finds that there were more than twice as many big earthquakes in the first quarter of 2014 as compared with the average since 1979. The same article continues, the average rate of big earthquakes, those larger than magnitude 7, have been 10 per year since 1979, the study reports. That rate rose to 12.5 per year starting in 1992, then jumped to 16.7 per year starting in 2010, a 65% increase compared to the rate since 1979. This increase accelerated in the first 3 months of 2014 to more than double the average since 1979, the researchers report, end of quote. As of July this year, Oklahoma had already experienced 2,300 earthquakes. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that the 2014 Ebola outbreak is the largest Ebola outbreak in history and the first in West Africa. As of September 16th, NBC News reported in an article about the growing crisis, the Ebola virus outbreak is unparalleled in modern times. The World Health Organization said Tuesday, announcing a global response coalition as the death toll in West Africa climbed towards 2,500 deaths with 5,000 others infected. The gravity is the situation is difficult to get across, said Bruce Elward, Assistant Director General of the World Health Organization. The first official case of Ebola has reached the U.S. now, with officials feeling unprepared to handle an outbreak in the country. On that same note, a mystery virus has reached more than half of U.S. states, reports the New York Post. On October 1st, CBS Connecticut reported that a Rhode Island child dies from complications of enterovirus that has been affecting kids nationwide. This was the first death due to this mystery virus, and now there have been 4. Iceland made the news as their volcano erupted. Flights were not disrupted as previously feared. According to Newsmax.com, it is producing dangerous sulfur dioxide gases forcing researchers at the site to wear masks as hot lava continues to spill out after nearly 2 weeks. Gas emissions were life-threatening to scientists and other researchers at the volcano site. According to the Wall Street Journal, with the danger heightened by unpredictable winds that created spikes in gas concentrations, workers had to wear individual gas monitors to test their exposure to sulfur dioxide. What we measure today is definitely very high, Sarah Barsodi, a volcanologist at the Icelandic Met Office, said on Wednesday. There's starting to be concern for the health consequences here. This eruption could last for several weeks or months. The journal said Icelandic authorities began instructing people in the vicinity with respiratory problems and children to stay inside and to keep their windows shut. The very next day, on August 29th, National Geographic posted an article about volcanic activity that is shaking the world. The headline states, "Restless volcanoes from around the world spew ash, steam, and concern in their wake." This time it was Mount T in eastern Papua New Guinea, as it began belching rocks, ash, and steam nearly 60,000 feet into the air. The power of this explosion resulted in a sonic boom caught on video. On September 27th, Mount Ontake in Japan caught many off guard as it erupted, trapping and killing, as of this recording, nearly 50 people. FoxNews.com recently posted online, social media chatter shows Islamic State militants are keenly aware of the porous U.S.-Mexico border and are expressing an increased interest in crossing over to carry out a terrorist attack, according to a Texas law enforcement bulletin sent out this week. These threats are to be taken seriously, as we've seen recently on YouTube investigative reporter James O'Keefe disguise himself as Osama bin Laden, who then crosses the border from Mexico to the U.S. Hatred for the Jews has always been an issue, but in the last several months the world has seen an increase. So much so that Secretary of State John Kerry met to discuss the rise of anti-Semitism with Jewish leaders. There's been a growing trend of mob violence here in the U.S., which often goes unreported by the mainstream media. A recent headline to highlight one among many was on Newsmax.com. 3 injured in attacks by 100-strong teen mob in Memphis. As of this month, CBS is reporting that Memphis mayor wants to end Friday night football due to youth mob violence. Also, you may have heard about the knockout game, where these young terrorists catch unsuspecting victims off guard by trying to knock them out with a single blow to the head. This is occurring all over the country. In most videos, the victim lies in the street while onlookers walk by. Describing signs of the end, Jesus said, "Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold." USA Today reports record rainfall in the southwest United States. Phoenix received more rainfall in early September than the usual amount for July, August, and September combined. The 81-year-old single-day rainfall record was broke on Monday the 8th and was the biggest flood in 44 years. A rare snowstorm hit the Rocky States, which gave residents in Cody, Wyoming, the earliest recorded snowfall there since records were kept in 1915. According to Breitbart News, the Al-Nusra Front, the Syrian rebel group linked to Al-Qaeda, has seized UN weapons, uniforms, and vehicles from peacekeepers in the Golan and set up a zone from which to wage attacks, according to the Syrian United Nations ambassador. This follows a takeover of the peacekeeping post in August on the Syrian-Israeli border, which has been in place since the end of Israel's Yom Kippur War in 1973. After several weeks, 45 peacekeepers being held hostage were freed. For now, this position is directly tied to the rebel strategy against Syria's President Assad. Ultimate concerns are that the Golan Heights are a strategic high ground that could be used to wage future attacks against Israel. An Oklahoma man beheaded a former co-worker and stabbed another several times before being shot and detained. On the day following this gruesome murder, another Oklahoma man who had been fired from a nursing home threatened to cut the head off of a female employee. A nationwide uprising that started in 2011 has continued to result in unrest in Syria's borders, mass killing, terrorist attacks, and has garnered attention on the international stage. We must keep in mind the prophecies in Isaiah 17 verses 1 through 3 and Jeremiah 49 verses 23 through 27 that speak of the complete destruction of Damascus. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said it right in a recent speech to a group of Marines in San Diego, admitting that, quote, "the world is exploding all over," end quote, according to the Weekly Standard. Even he recognizes that things are not what they used to be. And then on October 3rd, Joe Biden, our vice president, said international order literally fraying at the seams. It all reminds me of Jesus' words in Matthew 24:37. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. What was one of the defining points about Noah's day? Genesis 6:11 says, Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. Does that not sound like the state of our world at this moment? Just like Noah's day, the upcoming flood of judgment is about to take the world by surprise. Allow me to wrap up these headlines with one more, which was posted by Newsmax.com on September 16th. Franklin Graham, World Turmoil Could Signal End of the Age. From that article, the slaughter, persecution, and denigration of Christians in the Middle East and around the globe has a chilling resemblance to gospel warnings of signs of the end of the age, the Reverend Franklin Graham says. In a post on the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association website, the evangelist, the association's president and CEO, notes, It seems the world is coming apart at the seams. There appears to be no end to the bad news. Ticking off some of the most troubled places on the earth, Graham notes the killing of Christians by Muslims from Indonesia to Bangladesh to Pakistan, China tearing down church buildings, Christians tortured, beheaded, and crucified in Iraq, with villages burned and churches destroyed, and much the same in Syria. In the United States as well, he writes, there is great opposition to the Church of Jesus Christ. We see this throughout the media, the entertainment industry, government, and politics. The signs are unmistakable, he writes. Jesus warned his disciples in Matthew 24 when they asked him about the signs of the end of the age, he writes, he said there would be wars and rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, and pestilence. He told them, then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. The Ebola virus outbreak is yet another sign, he said. Graham also heads the charity Samaritan's Purse, whose workers have cared for victims in Africa. We have seen firsthand the pestilence of Ebola, he writes. A medical doctor serving with Samaritan's Purse in Liberia was infected with this deadly virus, but through the prayers of many righteous, God spared his life. I don't know if we have hours, days, months, or years, but as Christians, God calls us to take the truth of the gospel to the ends of the earth, he said. Matthew 24 is more real to me right now than it has been in the 16 years I've studied it, guys. The days are growing more and more evil with great speed. It appears that sin has about run its course and a new chapter is about to begin, but be comforted, church. Sin will not have the last laugh. Jesus is coming soon. Until next time, church, pursue him, proclaim him, prepare for him. Even so, come, Lord Jesus.